has done. It has prevented and combated famine, plague, civil war, unrest, genocide, and perhaps, just perhaps, may have even prevented world war, which it was designed to do. It has been a vehicle towards achieving what humanity has not achieved in its history, a global constructive medium of interaction for the entire global community on a relatively equal plateau. On a more personal level, I've had the opportunity to visit the United Nations on multiple occasions, primarily to attend the United Nations Youth Assembly. Here, youth and young adults come from nearly all of the countries that are represented with the United Nations flag, which adorns the UN building right in front of it. From Malaysia to Russia, Japan to Portugal, Argentina to Azerbaijan, youth leaders from all of these countries attend this three-day summit to share ideas, to network, and to take home some newfound realizations. We, the youth, have the opportunity to find common goals, to discuss strategies, and find ways to work together, even with organizations thousands of miles away who may not even speak the same language. Our common language becomes the language of humanitarianism. The most value out of these meetings is in breaking through the barriers that we ourselves have created in the minds of people, nationalities, and religions from which these other delegates come from. If nothing else, the biggest point of putting 700 young adults with different emotions into one huge hall room is for them to iceberg and get out of their comfort zone in dealing with each other. Now, I must say, this is much easier for us from the U.S., particularly because we are already primed to be the torchbearers of diversity in the world. We are socialized to interact with and learn from others, and diversity here is no longer just something of slogans. It is something that we actualize and practice on a daily basis. On the first day of the Youth Assembly a couple of years ago, I met two delegates from a North African country, and I introduced them to each other. After a few seconds into introducing them, I realized that their lapel pins were a bit different. When I looked at the slogans on the lapel pins, I quickly kind of realized after a few more seconds that they were from different political parties. And as I slowly backed up, expecting a near free-for-all between them, and as they started shouting to each other, one of them stormed off. The other scolded me for exposing them to this vile, uncouth, and smelly traitor, and began to tell me about how bad those of that other individual's party actually were. I consoled myself by telling my mind nothing extraordinary had really happened, to pretend that these two were perhaps Americans. But one of them was a Democrat, and one of them was a Republican. And then I asked myself why I found it odd for them to want to knock each other out. There's nothing really uncommon about that. Now, on the last day of the conference, I was walking through one of the hallways at the United Nations, the labyrinth of them, and I noticed two people talking out of the corner of my eye. Lo and behold, it was these two. And my first thought was, oh no, I better run. This is bad. No UN peacekeepers are even going to save me from this one. But as I turned back, they somehow caught a glimpse of me. Our eyes met and they said, Aaron, come on over here. And I thought, oh well, I'm in for it. Now, they said to me, what the devil are you doing? Come here. They explained to me how someone in one of their conference sessions had asked how best to increase women's rights in their country. Both told me how in responding to the question, they had found that their answers were actually rather common. Abruptly, one of them interjected the other in what, at another point, would probably have gotten them in a fist brawl, but here it seemed everything was okay. And they started saying how someone had been insulting their country, and how, because they too were patriots of the same country, united under that same banner, how they both were able to unite on that point as well. They had found something similar at a time when everyone and everything around them told them that they were to be enemies. We can take two lessons away from this story. One, that we need to send some Democrats and Republicans to the United Nations immediately to force them to work out their differences. But on a more serious note, that the inner strength does not only increase from within. There are limitations of even inner strength growing strong from inside. It may take a catalyst of an outsider to make us realize even ourselves. Now, the youth is inspired by the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. Never in the history of humanity have people had the chance to change the world on such a scale. But this opportunity will be lost if we do not get behind it. From micro, village-based initiatives in Ghana, with youth at the helm, to young British volunteers wanting to harness the power of the internet on how to get youth to participate and others to donate. All of these causes and movements are pushing forward the UN MDGs one small step at a time. The youth are already taking these steps to realize these MDGs. But, unlike in the past, they are spurting out very new, sometimes in fact radically new concepts on how to get people to volunteer, and something even harder, how to get people to actually donate and to help achieve these goals. But for the youth to go further, they will need partners. Their partners must be established organizations that can serve as their guides, helping them sift through the United Nations and its maze as the youth's idealism meets the brute nature of reality. Now let us turn to the page to a journey of a young soul along the river of Interfaith. My journey, and my mother will remember this, began at 6 a.m. one Sunday morning when I was 15. My mother woke me up and said it was time to go to an Interfaith event. My first thought wasn't Interfaith. Actually, it wasn't even faith. My first thought was, man, I'm hungry. So I keenly remember getting up and jumping into Mom's car, only to ask my mom as the first thing, so Mom, what kind of food do they have at this Interfaith thing we're going to? And when I got there, I was ambushed. People started asking me about Hinduism. One youth asked me, hey, so what is that reincarnation thing? And not knowing fully, at the time my response was, well, you know, recycling? Okay, let's try that with people. And that's Now I began to realize that I better learn about my own faith and why I actually believed it. It was through interfaith experience and the sharing and learning of ideas from other faiths that I was able to understand the rationale behind my own faith. But as I went nationwide learning about interfaith and interreligious dialogue, I realized that interfaith in California was rather advanced. While many other groups were just putting together adherents of Abrahamic faith, say Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, California-based groups like the United Religions Initiative were breaking an invisible barrier and reaching out to Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Native Americans, and others. Publications by the UBC, Parliament of World Religions event, and the Sheriff's Clergy Council demonstrate not only a willingness to partner with, but a want to induct among their own ranks individuals of Eastern and Native faiths. Interreligious progress is the next big social innovation of California. Many interreligious councils, however, still meet just once or twice a year, and after the ha-has and hee-hees of their meetings, time passes in between. And the members of these groups go back into their enclave, their own community. The only way to remediate this is through having something tangible for the group to achieve. UDC orients itself to harnessing the faith community towards service in the form of working with the global community towards attaining the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. The Parliament of World Religions harnessed the local faith community to build support for greater religious dialogue. This while the Sheriff's Clergy Council seeks to channel the energies of clergy from various faiths towards teaching the prevention of criminal activities and also influencing those behind bars so that they do not fall prey to a revolving door and arrive right back behind bars again right upon release. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one stage of interfaith, and that is getting the clergy to chat with one another, to see each other, and look at each other eye to eye. The next stage is getting them to be able to act together on issues. But herein lies a huge potential market to promote harmony and ease tension. And this can be achieved again through the youth. The youth are literally the future, and as such, promoting harmony among them is in the best interest of all. The youth of this generation have made it clear that service will be a heavier and more weighted measure of piety. Faith leaders will have to adapt to this much more hands-on style of realizing morals, and for these youth to realize their faith. To do so, promoting events and get-togethers in which their youth participate with other youth of other religious backgrounds will be very, very beneficial, but it will be even more beneficial if they are oriented towards accomplishing tangible social goals. Feeding the needy, building a house, collecting cans of food, and things of this nature would be not in the best interest only of the faith community, but it would also be in the interest of the communities they reside in, and also it would be a great lesson and way for the youth to get together as well. The final frontier would be for interreligious dialogue to happen on a global scale, under the guise of something greater. Today, there is a genuine yearning to push interreligious dialogue on a grander scale, perhaps even at the United Nations. The goal would be to have the great faith leaders discuss issues, to get those under the umbrella of religion to realize their similarities in a world that too often highlights their dissimilarities. Then again, is not the ideal where faith communities can feel free to interact and can learn from one another already being promoted by the grassroots? Not too long ago, and even today, cynics have tried and will continue to persuade people that interreligious dialogue does not work, that the UN is broken beyond repair, and that the global condition is not improving. I and the youth would challenge those cynics, those who fear, and those who will use fear as their weapon. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, fear is death. Fear is sin. All the negative thoughts and ideas that are in the world have proceeded from the evil spirit of fear. So as we head into this new year, let us not fear what people will say, but let us continue making a more perfect world, one small step at a time, one single person at a time, through the hands of one person. You. Thank you.